rights violations by police continue 1 year after peaceful Endsars protests ended in a brutal crackdown by Nigerian security forces in Abuja, Lagos and other parts of the country. An investigation by Amnesty International found that the Nigerian army and police killed at least 12 people on October 20, 2020 at Lekki Tollgate and Alausa in Lagos. A year on, despite the gravity of these human rights violations, not a single member of the security forces has been prosecuted, while judicial panels of inquiry set up to investigate abuses by officers have made little or no progress. Nationwide protests on Endsars started after weeks of outrage and anger, with videos and pictures showing police brutality, harassment and extortion in Nigeria. The protests, marked as Nigeria's largest protests ever, were led predominantly by young Nigerians in different cities alongside many activists and celebrities. They made several demands to the government, among which the dissolution of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS, or the psychological evaluation and the retraining of SARS operatives before they are deployed to other police units. Also, an adequate increase in salaries for officers of the Nigerian police, which they think could be the cause of their frustrations poured on civilians. Across much of the continent, cases of abuse by the police and security agencies are rampant. Indeed, protection of the populace by the police with no strings attached is often the aberration rather than the norm. Stories of police inefficiency, corruption, extortion of citizens and impunity abound. Countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, Kenya and South Africa are on the spotlight with police impunity, dashing away every form of trust in the security agents by the people. How the government can amend the situation is what victims of police brutality across the continent await in expectancy.
Thank you very much, Rita Moto, for that report. So I'm going to begin with you, David. Let's just remind the listeners what this Endsars protest is all about and why people decided to go out that famous day, October 20th, 2020, where 12 people lost their life at that particular toll gate in Lekki.
It wasn't 12 people that lost their lives. At a recent sitting of the Lagos State Judicial Panel on the Endsars process, a coroner at a nearby hospital reported that on the night, they received at least 99 identifiable bodies. So at least 99 people were confirmed to have died on the night. The real figure is probably multiples of that. So I just want to correct that. It wasn't 12 people that died. It was a lot more than that. Now, the significance of October 21 year on, to my eyes, was essentially a sort of a memorial event of the Nigerian government turning its guns on its own young people, on its own citizens, who were not asking for anything extraordinary. I mean, I myself was part of the protest. I protested in Lagos and in Abuja, and what we're not asking for, any significant change to the status quo in Nigeria, even though there's a lot of things that we were entitled to ask for. All we were asking for is, please stop shooting us, stop raping us, stop kidnapping us, stop doing these things extrajudicially, using the legalistic framework of this special anti-robbery squad, which has become a sort of like rogue unit acting, outside of the regular police command chain. And instead, what the government saw it fit to do, or what the government chose to do, was to reply us with bullets, right? All we were asking for was an end to something which itself was illegal and morally abhorrent. And the government chose to respond with bullets, to send the military and the police in to massacre dozens, probably hundreds of its youngest citizens who came out to protest. So for me, what yesterday marked was the first anniversary of a day when, to all intents and purposes, and in the minds of many young Nigerians like myself, the day when the idea of Nigeria died a certain death, right? That the day when people stopped thinking about Nigeria a certain way, certainly people in my generation started thinking about Nigeria in a completely different light. And I believe that going forward in the years to come, especially after the current administration leaves office, assuming they do leave office, because we don't know that that is going to happen at this point. But if they do leave office, this date, this October 20, is going to become a very significant date in Nigeria's history. And I believe we saw a glimpse of that yesterday, where despite the knowledge that the state was going to send its actors after, people who came out again, people still came out anyway to ensure that their voices were heard. So, and I think that's something that the government isn't happy about. The fact that this massacre, which it has repeatedly tried to deny, which up until yesterday, the information minister, Lai Mohammed, still came out with a ridiculous statement claiming that the government deserves an apology from Amnesty International and from CNN for quote-unquote telling lies. Because they're so desperate to deny that this massacre, which everybody saw, happened. And I think that the way that this thing was commemorated yesterday and the visibility with which it was remembered yesterday is not something the government is fond of, because it means that their crimes have not been forgotten, are not hidden. No one is falling for the amateur gaslighting and propaganda effort that they put out, trying to deny that this thing took place. And going forward, it's going to become a very momentous date in Nigeria's history. That's what I believe.
Thank you very much. Most reports which were given, it's good that you guys are Nigerians and you are out there, so you saw what happened on the ground. Because if you look at most reports which were given out there, the number you're talking about of people who were killed, that's not the number you could find in the different reports. But since you're on the field, that means the government really needs to look out on this. So, Mr. Hussaini, let's talk about the strength that people, despite the fact that they knew that yesterday, because I'm sure the government had warned that anybody who goes out to protest, probably they're going to arrest them. We saw that last time. But despite that, people still went out to the street, the Lekki Junction. I saw videos of cars that were honeying. And despite that, they were arresting people. We still saw some youths going out again. Why do you think there is that force and they want to make their voices heard? Is it because the government is not really giving justice to what they are calling true, or they want something different?
Yeah, there is a reawakening among young people in Nigeria about the evils that are going on in the country, all over the country. You see, police brutality has been an institutional issue in Nigeria and has continued for so long. I remember in 2009, the same SARS beat the hell out of me as a bureau chief of the Punch newspaper. At that time, I was the bureau chief of Punch newspaper in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, in South Nigeria. My offense was that I wrote a story criticizing the rogue police unit for killing a young man for driving against the flow of traffic. They shot the young man dead, and then they also fled, driving against the flow of traffic. A day after that story came out on the point, on Monday, the SARS operatives cornered me close to my house and beat the hell out of me. Now, after that incident, I did not take action. The reason I did not was because I knew that the attack was not, the police officers who blocked me and beat me up did not deliberately come out to hurt me. They had no issue against me. It was the commissioner of police in Rivers State at the time that sent them. So Nigerians have lived with a brutal police system, brutal security. Not only the police, the military is also involved in this. The civil defense is involved in this. Most of the security agencies and paramilitary agencies in Nigeria are involved in gross human rights violation. And so the young Nigerians got angry and they said they had enough. And that resulted in the Endsars movement. What happened yesterday is show that Nigerian youth are not satisfied with what is happening, are not satisfied with the lip service the government has given to the demands of reforming the police, reforming the security system, reforming the economy to create jobs, and a lot more. Nigeria is on, is on auto drive. and nothing is really working. And young people no longer have confidence in their own country. And it is not just about SARS alone. It is institutional decay in Nigeria, the unemployment, the crime level, everything that is wrong in Nigeria is what the youths are talking about. And they will not stop talking until there's a change. Yesterday, in spite of everything the government did, including threatening some event centers that young people had paid for to use to commemorate the day, the young people of Nigeria all over the country, it was not only in Lagos, in some other parts of the country, came out in their numbers and made their voice known. So it shows that it is not going to be business as usual in Nigeria. The times have changed. This generation is not my generation. The generation after me does not want to be patient with the corrupt system that we've been used to. They don't want to hear about the fact that the country is so rich, but we are so poor in all its ramifications. And so they will continue to demand for accountability. They're going to continue to demand for justice, and it will not stop until we have a change. They will not kill everybody. And I know that the change that the young people of Nigeria are looking for is just by the corner. 2023 will be a different scenario. The election that is coming in 2023 will not be like every other election. I think the Nigerian youth will want to make a statement, a very clear statement, and I've started sending that statement, and so strong, and to the leaders of Nigeria that enough is enough. And I think yesterday and what happened on October 20th October 2020 will continue to vibrate and will continue to be remembered as the day Nigerian young people said enough is enough.
Sorry to hear that you were one of the victims. It's a very sad situation to hear that people actually face such out there. This program is going on live on Facebook. There are people sending messages online, and the numbers should be on the screen. We're going to take a couple of callers in a few minutes. So, David, let me come back to you. Why do you think the government has difficulties to stop this incriminating activities? Because there's not now that it started. People have been complaining about insecurity in the country, complaining about the acts of police officers, of military officers, that we hear kidnapping in Nigeria. It's as if it's even more than Somalia at this moment. It's so crazy with the kidnapping and the ransoms. Why do you think it is so difficult for the government to stop this? Is it that they are so slow, or they're not really interested in it because it concerns the military, which is the backbone of the country?
I think it's clear that it's not really a capacity problem. It's a problem of will. It's a problem of political will. There is no political will to end this problem, because this problem can be ended with a stroke of a pen. Right? If the government should so decide that gross human rights violations by police, by paramilitary forces such as the NSCDC, and by the military should stop forthwith, all it would take is a single executive order. It's really not that difficult a thing to do. The problem is that the Nigerian state is very happy to use these instruments of state as crude sort of blunt force weapons to bludgeon the rest of the country into line, especially young people. The Nigerian government, especially the current administration that is in charge of the Nigerian government, which is obviously an administration dominated by people who are 2 or 3 times my age, or who are 3 or 4 times the national median age. The national median age of Nigeria, remember, is just 17.9, and the average age in the current administration is something like 65 or 66. So this is an administration which, by the dictionary definition of the word democracy, is not a democratic administration. It simply doesn't represent Nigerians demographically, right? That administration really doesn't understand why young people think that they have rights, that they have human rights. Bear in mind that these are military people who retired and then put on civilian clothing. So their way of thinking is still very much stuck in the 1980s. It's still stuck in the time when human rights were more of a suggestion than a fact. So the idea that young Nigerians would demand to have their human rights, their fundamental human rights respected, People like Muhammad Buhari really do not understand it. They don't understand where this idea comes, where the audacity comes from, where the boldness and bravery comes from. They really don't get it. Because the Nigeria that they grew up in and Nigeria they are familiar with, and the Nigeria that they still think they can reshape the current country into, was a country where when somebody tells you jump, you say how high. And it doesn't even occur to you to ask a question in return, like, why should I jump? Why do I have to do this? What power do you have to make me do this? What is the reason why I have to do this? That's the country they grew up in. And unfortunately, they really don't understand why things have to change. So they are committed in the year 2021 to reshaping Nigeria as it currently exists in the image of Nigeria of 1984, which obviously isn't going to happen because it's basically demographic warfare, which I mean the aging generation has never won demographic warfare ever in human history for obvious reasons, because as far as I know they're not immortal, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to try. So this is one of the sort of the fronts in that war on youth and war on young people in Nigeria, war on ideas, war on anything new. That no, the status quo must remain. The status quo is that the state has the capacity and the ability and the willingness to use armed agents of state as crude blunt force weapons to smash everything in their way, and that's the primary way of interacting with citizens that you govern. You use force. You don't use consensus. You don't use reason. You don't use engagement. You use force. So the activities of SARS, of the military, of the NSCC, of the customs, of the immigration, because all the other paramilitary agencies act the same way, up to and including, even as we saw yesterday, the Lagos Neighborhood Security Corps, who are not even constitutionally an armed force. They're just literally an outfit created by a state government who have bicycles and uniforms. And we saw them join in to brutalize protesters too, because that's how the Nigerian state thinks that you engage with young people, with citizens. You beat them up, you bludgeon them, you force them to do what you want to do. That's the primary method of engagement as a leader, is force. So that's why this isn't going to change. And that's why this battle has only just started, because as long as that generation remains alive and remains in power, we're still going to keep on butting heads on this issue. Well, on the one hand, you have people like myself, people in my generation, who insist that we have rights. These rights must be respected. We are human beings. We have value. Our lives have value, and we demand for our lives to be respected and to be treated as though they have value. And then on the other hand, you have these geriatrics who grew up in the 60s and 70s who think we're talking absolute rubbish, shouldn't understand what the hell we're on about. So this battle is going to continue, and that's exactly why.
Let's compare the government between Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan, the former president. We know, is it because he was a former general? And looking at police brutality during this time, was it any different during the time of Goodluck Jonathan and now?
So it's easy to say that it's worse now. Like, in some ways, it is worse now. However, as Isime mentioned, for example, in his case, the incident that he described in 2009, where he was beaten up for basically publishing a factual